Nice. So we are in St. George, Utah today. It's Easter holiday. And we are blessed to have two special guests with us today. We have Relia Skinner, and I practiced your last name, but I already messed it up, Neoma.
Soelberg.
Well, I know Neoma Soelberg, who are sisters, both born in the Star Valley, Wyoming area, correct? Correct. And Relia is just, a month away from turning 100?
99.
99. Well, no, you are 99.
I'm in my 99th year.
99th year, yes. And Neoma, you are 101, right?
I will be 101 in 2 weeks.
And sisters, so there's 2 years apart from each other. Neoma is the older of the two, right? And Neoma, you still go back to Star Valley.
Do when I live alone and I fix my own food and I still have to clean, but that doesn't get done too good.
Nice. And she's still driving. So she's still cruising around. You might see her and give her a wave. Now, you both were born in 1925?
1925.
And you were born in 1927? Okay. Just pre-Great Depression. How many siblings did you all have?
There were 11 of us.
11.
3 boys and 8 girls.
And you're the second youngest, right? Yeah. And then Naomi, you were a twin.
We had a new baby when our mother died, and 2 months old, and Relia was a year and 2 months, 2 days. 14 months. 14 months old. My twin sister and I were 3 years old, and we had a brother 5 years old. So that makes 5 kids in 5 years. Besides the older.
All under the age of 5, basically 5 kids. Now, and you had a baby sister named Valier. I don't know why I always want to call her Blanche. But Valier. And your father was a sheep farmer, and he would rent a farm or a ranch, right? And then shear the sheep.
We had a ranch, but it was during the Depression, and I think he lost it. But then he had to, up in Star Valley, our grandparents was the first people that ever lived there, other than the Indians. So it was new country. And it was like the pioneers.
Were there a lot of natives?
Pardon?
Were there a lot of natives?
They're pretty much gone. They didn't like Star Valley in the winter like everybody else. But they did come. They liked to come and trade.
Oh, that's nice. So you were
Come every summer to trade for pelts so that they could make moccasins and gloves and trade. They did a lot of trading with the Star Valley people.
Nice. And from there, what's the oldest brother's?
Walt.
Walt is the oldest.
And he was 17.
17.
And Roy, this was the second one, he was 15. And Goldie, about every year and a half, there's Goldie. We should maybe say how we used to say it.
Hold on one sec.
Okay, we used to go down the list of our family. We'd say Papa, Mama, Walt, Roy, Goldie, Wanda, Wilda, Blanche, Wayne, Wyoming, Neoma, and Relia Skinner. We'd say who could say that the fastest. So that's how we keep track. There's actually 2 boys, 4 girls, 1 boy, 4 no girls.
Walt's the oldest. And when Blair was born, how old was Walt?
Walt was 17.
17.
And then in July, he turned 18.
Now, do you remember how old or how many siblings your parents had? We talked about it yesterday, but your dad, how many siblings did your dad have?
He had 5 brothers and I think 4 sisters.
Wow. Okay.
He was including it's 5 boys and 4 girls.
Gotcha. So he had 9 or he was 10?
9.
It's 9 total. Okay. And what about your mom?
Do you talk with you? I do all the talking. But
You're the older, more senior sister, so it makes sense.
It's about
Really will just correct you when you get it wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. I think there was 4 boys and 4 girls, probably.
On your mom's side. Yeah.
Can you think of any more? Uncle Chet and Ed? Will and Russ and Delbert. No, there's 5 boys.
5 boys.
5 boys and 4 girls.
Gotcha. And then what about your aunts and uncles or your grandparents? Do you remember their families being fairly
Well,
large? But when you were kids, do you remember any of your genealogy or story? Were there large families?
Yes, we used to go to our grandmother. I'm in the talking because Relia was only 1. She doesn't remember quite as well as I do because the 3 you don't remember a lot.
That's true.
No, we had a grandmother that lived in Afton, Wyoming, which is 10 miles away. But we would often go to her house. And of course, she liked us to go there. And
She had electricity.
yeah,
Oh, that's right.
AI of today.
Bit of that. Exactly. How did DoorDash find you? You said no insulation?
no insulation.
Now, you were talking you'd split wood. One of you would have to saw it. The other one would split the wood. And then you'd have to carry it in and move. There'd be no insulation, so you'd have to keep that fire.
Did that.
You were
Teenager. She was just probably 6 years older than me. But she was only a teenager, and she was kind of the little boy of the house because the 2 older boys had to leave to make a living. But she liked to be outside anyway. But she when those big long crosses saw us, she got on one end of it, and then Blanche. Well, see, I would be 5 about that time. Wayne would be 7, Blanche would be 9. I know Blanche would get on the other end, and she'd saw with them, and they'd get cold. She'd go in and lay, and Wayne would get on the end of the saw, and she'd keep us on with them. But that's little kids. Like my sister and I, we had
Well, you say a teen, but that means she was like
We-
9.
to keep from rolling. Now we would run back and forth because it was so cold in Wyoming. It got real cold. A lot of times it got 52 below.
Well, there's a part of the story we did leave out, and that is your mother passed away giving birth to your younger sister, correct?
No.
It was before they had penicillin or any of that. Good.
The pre-penicillin days, right?
It was sinus and
Oh, a sinus infection.
And got sinus problems and
bad tooth, and between the pains in her head, she just died.
she had all this pain and she couldn't tolerate the pain. So they extracted a tooth.
Ah, because
So
when you have a
they
sinus
get
infection,
like-
it'll start to hurt your tooth.
She was years doing this, suffering from it. But toward the last there, when it got worse, well, she went back about 3 months, I think, after they pulled her tooth.
I did
And
get a first-hand account of her when she died. A woman that she married my cousin, was in the hospital at the same time. And she said it was infection. It just all got infection. I had no way to find
There's
it.
no way to find it. And how long was that after Blanche was born?
What?
Blair. Now I'm blending them together.
Okay, this was 2 months after the
2 months after Blanche.
Blair was born in July.
I was going to ask this, was it summer or winter?
September. But then, what they did at the last, they went to a doctor that used to take care of all the cowboys and everybody. But they got hurt, the outlaws, and he lived in Soda Springs, right over the little mountain. And they took her over there to the hospital, and he drilled a hole in her head. And of course, that got an infection. In those days, they didn't.
Between a sinus infection, abscess tooth being pulled out.
She was gone. Well, that was a sorrowful day for the family.
So your mother passes away. There's 10 of you between the ages of 2 months and 17. Your father is
11 children.
11 of you, right? 11 of you. My goodness. Your father is working the farm, and this would have been 1929.
He took her shearing sheep. He learned from his brother.
And this is pre-electric, right? I mean, it's the
Yeah,
manual.
by hand.
And it wasn't very long ago. He became very good at it. And from then on, that was the main source of income.
Income.
Yes, our father's brother had the sheep, And he had a bunch of sheep up there in this little place called High Bees, 5 miles from Auburn.
That's where the ranch was.
Gotcha. Okay.
But he had a little band of sheep, and of course, Dad would go shear all those, so we learned how to shear sheep. And then from there in Starville, if you don't have ground and if you cows, you don't have a paycheck or milk or anything else. So he had to make a living. And so he went to different places shearing sheep.
So how did that go? The 11 of you between the ages of 2 months and 17. How did you, your father is working, it's your only income. This is literally 1929, the Great Depression.
28 is when
This was 1928. Gotcha. Okay. So this was right before, this is a year before the Great Depression, because that was October 1929. So how did you all survive? I mean, I'm mind blown here.
Well, let you talk. I do all the talking. You say something.
Our older sisters, they were 12 and 14, took over the responsibility of raising us. I'm sure that when Mother was alive, they learned the cooking skills and housekeeping skills because they were very fruitful.
Now, cooking in these days, this isn't as easy as pulling something out of the freezer and heating it up in the microwave, right?
No.
So give us a little flavor. I mean, there was no refrigerator.
No.
Give us, what's an idea of a meal, and what would you have gone through to cook an
Bread and
average
gravy.
day? Bread and gravy.
Yeah, what are you eating?
Fried potato. And this would be on a fire stove, right?
Cook stove. Things burned real easy. And we ate burned bread all night. And the girls used to tell us, if you eat that black burned bread, you'll have black curly hair. And we all had straight hair. I would do anything to.
You wanted the curly hair, so you were all for it. You were trying to eat as much black burned bread as you could. Right?
Burnt bread, and it was burnt black. But they get the oven. It takes a little trick to put enough wood in the stove just to heat the oven. And there's no things to tell you how hot it is. Only you stick your hand in there to see.
That's how you would test
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You'd burn
yeah.
your
I think it's
finger.
hot.
But anyway, to make it bake real beautiful, well, it took a little bit of knowledge, and I imagine the girls, they probably did a lot because I'm sure them being the oldest with 11 little kids, I think Mother taught them a lot of stuff, and they probably washed a lot of dirty diapers. Then they didn't have pads they could throw away.
And it really was on your older sisters because your brothers had to go work, right?
So the older brothers work, and they helped us out financially.
Oh, nice. So they would go and work, and they kind of send some money back and support everyone. Nice.
We had a wonderful family, though. I never heard any swear words except the neighbor.
Oh, really? Those neighbors, they're loud music.
They sound Australian.
It's a southerner. But when they get the cows in at night, if you have anything to do with the cows, milking or anything else, and they switch their dirty old tail and it comes over and hits you in the face, no wonder they swear and cuss, and they kick them off their stools and move. And he would swear like crazy, you know. That's the only swear words we ever known.
Interesting, because my own grandfather had a few swear words. I know. I remember I was saying he must have picked those up from a few places. So.
Yeah, they were related.
So what kind of things would you do to keep yourself busy? What was school like? Were you continuing to go to school? Was there a school? Yeah.
To walk in the snow.
Both uphill, both ways in the snow. Is that
That's
okay?
the other one. And this is always closed in with snow. So we'd have to go and clear around to get to school. But then later they built a rodeo grounds there. So then we'd walk on the top of the poles to get to school.
What was dating like? Do you have a dating app then? Was it
Tinder.
TikTok? Not necessarily kids. I just mean as you were growing, your brothers were teenagers, so they were working a lot, but it must have had a social atmosphere. What was the social atmosphere like? How did you all get together? Or there's 11 of you, so maybe you didn't need.
We just had the church.
If they were dead, grams, play.
They were dancing really the hometown dancing before, when we were little, before we were born. Mother used to play she had an organ, and she used to play the piano that they had, or the organ, I don't know what they had, but for their dances.
Our mother was very talented. She played by ear too.
Oh,
All the modern songs.
And
We were
taught
told how
very
much
much.
she did.
He was kind of tall, 6 foot, but he was an excellent dancer. You know.
your father, this is?
And yeah, he'd always lead out in the Virginia reels, and a lot of times, as the little kids, we could go and they had benches up on the stage, and they would sit on that benches until we got sleepy, and then we'd sleep while they danced. Of course, Mother wasn't there
Right.
when I was involved.
He would dance with we kids, even me. I would put my feet on top of his, and he would move my feet. He would dance with me, riding on his feet. But he just wanted to keep us entertaining, make us happy, make us know that we were part of the family.
That was
He
funny.
was a wonderful man.
How long did you stay in the Star Valley, Wyoming area?
So we got our lives.
Oh, really? So you grew up there?
Yeah, well, we moved. I was in the 6th grade when we moved to Turnerville. That's where our older sister one of the girls got married, and
This is still Wyoming?
in Wyoming, it's just over the mountain,
Gotcha.
10 miles away. But that was when I was in the 6th grade, and the last month of school, we went to this one-room schoolhouse in Turnerville. Of course, that'd just be Wayne, and he was in the 8th grade. Blanche, she was she got her job working at Valley Mountain Hotel, and she worked there. Right, finished school.
What'd you think about your sister getting married? Was she the first one to fly the coop, as they say?
Oh,
no,
Wanda was the first one. She married Lewis Turner, and he was a fine man. I'll have to tell you something, though.
Please.
Before her first baby was born, I was just a little tight, but I saw her stomach getting bigger, and I thought, well, I know she's going to have a baby. I better tell her. She needs to know.
It's 90 years, and we're finally telling the world she's letting me know. You're doing.
Beginning, our youngest, the baby, there was no way my father could take care of the baby, and well,
This is Valaire.
5 babies, you might say. And mother's sister, she had 2 or 3 miscarriages, and they wanted the baby, and so we said they could take her for a year. By the time the year was over, the situation wasn't any better for Dad anyway.
That was the Great Depression, right? It just started.
So just kept her until
Gotcha.
Uncle Don, he got killed when Blair was 5 years old. So she moved back to Wyoming, and so they lived in the same town that we did. We later on
They
moved
lived in
to.
Grandma's house.
So she spent a lot of time with us, and he was our little baby.
So she was close, but she actually grew up with Aunt Flora.
But still reading this baby, and I can still see it in my mind. Not that I actually saw it, but I can imagine it. Knowing little kids, I can see Mother nursing Blair, and Bridget sat only 1 year old, sitting on the bed, a-gooing, kissing the baby, and Mother was probably the only way she could take care of the babies, is both of them on the bed at the same time. But then to Bridget, you tell me your own story about Blair crying and crying. And then when you held her hand, she shut up.
Oh, yeah. I think way back. I can't remember the incident, but I know that everyone made her cry except me. I had to hold I had to have a hold of her hand, and this is when she came to visit. And
She'd be gone, say, for a year and wouldn't even see Relia, but she recognized that touch.
Wow.
so as long as I was touching her, she was great. But the minute
You were
I-
gone, she'd cry again. See, I think I grew up with the opposite, Grandma. I think we were crying, and then you'd look at us and say, "Be quiet before I give you something to cry about." I think we got the other side of your hands. Every time your hand lifted, we get a little scared. So, as you grew up, you were 2 years apart, which is a lot, but not necessarily that much when it comes to boys. Did you two find yourself mixing in the same dating pool? Were there a lot of? I mean, Star Valley is pretty small today. I mean, did you have?
No.
Please.
but from Chernobyl to Ashton, where the high school was. How long were we on the bus?
I don't know, for an hour, maybe 2 hours.
And Wilbert was on the bus.
And this is your future husband.
And he used to sing a place for me. So we always he sing a place. And we held hands.
Uh-huh. And what age were you at this time?
She's good.
Hey. Oh, scandalous. This is scandalous. Very nice.
Yeah, he always gazed on Relia from the first time he saw her. But no, went to dances and stuff.
Kind of make
We was about freshmen in high school. We got in one fight. And as a pull on the hair, we got long hair there. And
two of you fighting sisters? Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
she had a big fistful of hair. 45.
So who ended up walking away? Who was?
It's the only time we ever, but I'm a 12. My best friend with me here all the time.
You had the posse. You were outnumbered,
Best-
girl.
And about that, Neoma.
That's right.
Now she's angry again.
See?
She is feisty. She wants an apology.
Life is going to change.
So not too long after that, there was the war. Do you all remember? Where were you? What was the setting and how? What kind of impact did that have?
School. Because radios, they were quite scarce. In fact, the first radio attempted to Auburn, Wyoming. My brother Walt had bought it and brought it up to the family. And they called a town meeting just to hear that radio.
Really? So the whole town came down here. No invention.
Just to hear the radio.
Yeah,
And after that,
only one person could hear her in time.
Oh, really? So it was like a headphone type of. Oh, wow.
but back then, he had a battery then, but they used to put the wires in a bucket of crystals
Hmm.
to get the electricity for the electricity
Oh,
for the
wow.
radio.
Create a charge. Wow.
They keep it all straight. We were in Auburn, probably about 8 years after Mother died. And then our sister got married and Dad had to leave. And of course, the house we lived in belonged to our grandmother. And the family was anxious to
So
tell, I guess.
your dad had to leave. He had to, for work, he had to travel.
He had to go all the time.
Oh, he was always traveling. So you were at home alone. Your kids were raising yourselves then. Oh my goodness. Wow.
But anyway, he did find out an old house in Patton, but we, for the 1 year, we moved to Turnerville, and that was more snow up there than anywhere in the valley. But Lois, her brother-in-law, he had shoveled a place down by the pig pen. Anyway, enough for a tent. He pitched a tent there, and we put the beds in that tent, and there's still snow. And because they only lived in just a little 2-room cabin, and they had a baby, Wanda Lewis and this baby, and she might have been pregnant too. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, for that month, we Of course, all the boys in Turnerville, here there was about 6 or 8 boys in our age group, and so we was popular. There's only one girl.
The Roos girls.
And then in Bedford, the next town that we kind of went to church, the same thing. They're all boys, one girl. But anyway, when they'd come pick up the milk up to there, all these boys to jump on the milk wagon so they could get a sight of these girls.
And this is actually a wagon, right? With horses pulling a...
That's when we first went to Turnerville before the snow and melt. And but anyway, yeah, we always made sure they saw us too.
It got to a point, though, where they were able to buy a car. Some, you wouldn't believe what they looked like. They would pull the wagon and give up the horses. And there was a point when they went from trailers to
I can remember
car.
to cars.
I can remember when the older girls were dating, though, and they would came with the team in Sleigh, and then whistle. And Dad always said, "None of my girls, you can't come in and get my daughter." And that's when he said, I don't know how
Protective,
they could do that because somebody had to hang on to the horses. But anyway, they used to go as a group, mainly. They go sleigh riding a lot in the wintertime, but I never got in that fun about doing that. But I do understand that song, "Over the River and Through the Woods to Grandmother's House." The way. And Dad they would put hay at the bottom of the sleigh and quilts and everything. And we'd go over to grandmother's. It's probably taken an hour, hour and a half. I don't know how long to go 10 miles. But anyway, in the winter, then when we'd come home, Dad would go, and what they'd do is put extra hay in it so that when you was at grandmother's, you just unhooked the horses and tied them up to the sleigh, and they could be eaten all the time, that hay out of the sleigh. That they do that when they went to church too, and church was all across the way from us.
Always a hitching person.
Gotcha.
Family.
Something to tie a horse to. Your horse or your kids. If you got 11 kids, you can tie them up. You can hook it to the horse.
I'll finish my story.
Please.
Anyway, when we got on the way coming home, it'd be 5 o'clock at night and start getting dark. We had a long ways, 10 miles to go to get home. And that, like sometimes at one time, it was so dark, and I said to Dad, "Can the horses see where they're going?" But he didn't. They just give them their heads, and the horse, always find their way home. But they would trot, and hey, I can hear that click, 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 that trot, 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 and of course it was cold, and you had to put the quilts up over your head. But I know I was really worried this one night when it was so black and how I was going to get home when those horses could. But they did. They took us right to the door, but they would go down to and walk. They'd walk. But when they knew where they were, then it took go a little bit faster and faster. But I can still relate to Over the River and Through.
Probably sing that song 100 times to make it. Now, I know a little something. You both ended up starring in a television show, So Lovely Sisters, and that was in Flagstaff, Arizona, right?
Right.
How did you get from Wyoming to Flagstaff running I think you ran for 3 years, right, on the show?
Yeah.
Was it 3 years?
That's all one story. You don't want to hear it.
That's what we're here. Let's figure out. How'd you get from Wyoming to Flagstaff?
Well, Relia's.
Please.
We got married. We got married, lived in Idaho Falls, and decided to go to Sandpoint to live. And
Sandpoint is Idaho, right? Yeah.
Perfect. And raised the kids. And then when they got old enough, they were in college and on missions, and we knew we had to make a change. So we chose Flagstaff, where we knew that they could all get a job there.
Gotcha.
And one thing led to another, and I had brought Bernina, I forgot Bernina's son and they had, I loved it. They had it for the store for sale. And
Berlina store, or this like a sewing or
but it was a sewing. It was a drapery shop.
gotcha.
Fabric. Then we had it. We did the interior decorating. But when Lisa got in school, I just
This is your youngest daughter, Lisa.
my youngest daughter, Lisa. She was at school, and it took one day for me to get bored to death to be home alone. That big house all by myself. So I became more interested in the Spadina store.
To avoid the kids, you decided to go to work.
So that it was too much for me because of the all involved.
So Neoma, you got in
Very
there, got
good
roped in then.
So
Well-
Neoma and Blair both came,
Gotcha.
and we all took
She
it.
called me up and asked me if I'd come. Oh, I already had a business that's doing ceramics in my basement. But my husband wasn't too well at that time, and so he was willing to go. So we moved to Flagstaff and went in business with him. So before we get out of our, I'd like to tell you
Please.
things that happened when we were kids.
Love it.
But Dad would have to, the older kids would be in school. They'd have to take, it was usually with a team in Sleigh. They had to go to school, to high school in Afton. And the older kids would be gone. So Dad, they would be Wayne and Wyoming and I and Relia. And most of the time, Relia wasn't there because she was a little too little. But he would have to get hay for the horses. And so we had dipped the sleigh bed. And when it was cold, there was usually a trail where the road was. We'd have to get out and run. Dad would make us get out off the sleigh and run to get warm because it was so cold, And if he'd ask if it was warm, we'd say no. Well, he'd make us run and then he'd come. And then he'd put us on the sleigh. But when it snowed, it's a whole different story. There's no tracks where the road is, nothing. So he would have to get out and ahead of the horses and break a trail for those horses. And then, of course, they would lunge. Horses, when they pulled something, they'd lunge and some of the snow would go on top of the bed. Yeah. And then, of course, us kids, they would lunge and jerk off. We'd go in the back and be buried in all that snow. And then it was just a constant trip like that. But when we got up to Tyge, there was a little cabin up there that a couple lived with two little kid boys. Really used to play with them, Walter and Lionel. And they got, first of all, he would heat a big rock and then cover it before he left. He would heat it in the oven and get it hot and cover it with burlap sacks and put it on the rack so that we could have something warm. And it was cold. Those days you didn't have overshoes and snow suits and all that. I don't know how we ever stood it because it was really nothing in the way they wear things nowadays. And when we get up there, then he'd take the rock and put it in their oven and get it warm. And he'd go log the hay. And then when he got through loading hay, Daddy, kind of like me, he likes to talk. And he visited a lot. And of course, they liked him company too. But he would visit with them, have a cup of coffee, and then he would take the rock out. But it was nice going home because he had all that hay and he'd make a little nest, put the rock in there, and then we'd just be cozy warm. And then the time we got home, and in the barn, the kids were coming from Afton from school. And the house was ice cold, and I mean ice cold. The water bucket was froze solid. And so they were just trying to make fires to show them and things. And it was so cold in the house. It was warmer. Like, for instance, when you've got cows, I don't know why they do this, but they do it anyway. Is the minute you take them in the barn, they have to relieve themselves.
That's like every man I've ever met.
Yeah, and the smell and the fumes was really gaggy, but then and it was so wet. But we would stand over against the wall. It was warmer, but it made a lot of heat. Yeah.
I see.
Stand by the wall. Go free nap in that house.
I see.
And then
Just
we
that-
got all the cows all in and everything. Well, then he'd go in and make sure the fire was going, and we had a pot-bellied stove.
I'd like to say one thing. The house really wasn't terribly old. It's still standing,
Really? What?
Yeah. But it was big, and it was a nice house. Was one of the nicer homes.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Now, your father built this
And
house? Is that
my
grandfather built this house? Wow.
He made a lot. Really was industrious.
Wow.
Did well. And Grandma wanted electricity. So he bought a house in Ashland and moved down. And that was the house empty. But it was a nice house.
Right. You all were really remote for a long time, right? Especially growing up. Did you ever see anything interesting out in these remote woods? I imagine the star sky was gorgeous, but
Oh, we used to do a lot of shoveling snow. Would make bucks and geese trails all over the place. And one winter, Wayne, he was the instigator. Usually he was on bad things. But we made the trip to the outdoor toilet. We'd had to be away from the house.
the
We
outhouse.
just made it big zigzags. And it took up quite a bit. We made it far enough apart so they couldn't go jump from one thing to another. But it was that way all winter long. And then as the new stone came out, we just go clean it out again. And
He just make her
so
go
the
back
the
and forth
toilet
with
was
the trail.
really. But then too, I'll tell you how cold it was. There was Jack Frost on all the windows. You had to scratch the
Right.
you heard somebody outside. You had to go.
You had to scratch the window to see through
You
it.
had to see it. And even on the bedding, where you'd breathe sometime, it would freeze ice.
Right.
That's how cold it was.
Wow.
Sometimes we got like 52 below and we'd go coasting up on the snow,
Right.
coast all night. And we just had a lot of fun. We did a lot of fun things. And then summer time we played Annie over. That's a big tall house too. And it was a fun thing. All the kids liked to come to our house because we had a lot of
Well, you had 11 people. You were the city, so
The town.
teams.
town was right there in your living room. What was technology like? What was the biggest radio, you said you all went downtown to listen to the radio, but when did TV come in? What was the biggest technology movement that excited your ear?
Electricity to Star Valley.
That was amazing. And what was that like? They were bringing in telephone poles and power plant?
And had it because they had a water line coming out of the canyon. And at Auburn, the town was living in, that's supposed to have been the main town. And they built that rock church there and everything. And then because of the water situation, and they changed it at Afton. Afton became town. And then, so our grandparents, they had built that house in Auburn. So it's fairly new. But they moved to Afton. And so Mother and Dad lived in their house. And then in the rest of Star Valley
Had electricity after that. Oh, none. So it was just after that had it. And what was the biggest impact after your house had electricity? What was life before and after?
Star Valley is just a little place. There's not too many big things.
But now you had lights at night, right? You'd have lights. Did you have electrical heating? Did you have just lights?
No.
Tell you one thing that happened. Of course, I'm thinking of my age. Really, everybody, they got to go on trips with Dad. There's only room for one person or something. Well, they got twins can't go. The twins can't go.
Because there's two of you, they'd have to split. You were troublemaking twins.
But to share sheep for a month. And Roy and Relia and Goldie got to go. You got to go a couple of times, didn't you? Anyway, everybody got to go until it's finally the last of all.
Well, there's 11 of you, so fair enough. I mean,
go, but in that time, you know, no, but a lot of people never left Star Valley their whole life
Oh,
because it was 50 miles away to the
Yeah.
north. We saw Yellowstone Park. But when they took us up to Montana and after that work was done, they had a big three-ring circus. And we got to see Barnum Bailey's three-ring circus with 18 elephants and all these lions and all this big show. And then our dad even let us ride in an airplane where
really?
if an airplane came to town, everybody ran down to see it, Which for anybody else in Star Valley never got to see this. And we're supposed to be the fourth kids in town. Speaking of airplane, when an airplane flew over, everybody ran out to see it. It's like the red.
It was a big event.
It was exciting to see them. But we had a good family. The boys were a bit teases and all, but they were kind. To the day that they died, we was the best family.
What about the other families? What was an average family like? You saw lots of families were pretty big. And same.
Yes, with one family, and that cured me for life.
You never want to look at another family. I wasn't.
Together all the time. I never did that. It was a love.
Gotcha.
She really was a loner.
You're not a loner anymore, Grandma. In fact, let's talk about that. How many kids did you both go on to have?
But the doctor has had different ideas. When the last one was born, I had a hysterectomy. I didn't even know I was going to have it.
Just that. But the last one was number 11?
11.
11.
Like 4 families, about the same age as our family, in that little town of Auburn. And there was 11, 12, or 13 kids.
Population 44.
Drainies, that he had 2 wives, but they had 26 kids.
Somebody had 26 kids?
Yeah,
Oh, my God.
5 miles away.
Oh,
The Drainies.
26.
Yeah.
They just kept coming in and out. She didn't count them. What? So, do you know your total posterity now? You had 11 kids. Your kids had kids. Your kids' kids have kids. You have 5 generations today, correct? 5 generations. So you now have a great-great-granddaughter, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And several. What?
Skylar, there's Skylars. You've heard of Tim Barnes?
Can't say that I have.
Hey, who he is. He's one of the newest members of the.
He's general president, the young men's president.
Okay.
He's got 5 or 6.
5 or 6 kids? Okay. Have you noticed this in your own?
No, it's his son does.
Oh, his son has 5 or 6. Do you notice? What have you noticed as far as how large families are in your own families? Are they getting larger? They're getting smaller? What's your opinion on that? Why do you think families are getting smaller?
Well, because a lot of it is because of money. They can't afford it.
I mean, but
you had
You just
11 kids
explained-
with no money,
yeah, you just explained that you had 11 kids and you
with
had
no
no
electricity.
money.
Yeah.
No water?
Else was in the same way. 'cause
No
there's all the
toilet.
other families that
toilet.
live-
Well, I'll tell you, we never did want or need for money. We were real close. But for us to actually not have any, we were never in that position.
Do you think it's different now, or do you think people just complain more?
I know why it was. My husband knew what we paid our tithing.
Okay. All right. Well, people pay tithing today, and they still don't have large families.
But all of because they want a career.
I like it. Okay. So what was that like being a woman in those days? Were you able to find work? Were you able to get a job? Did you have any work? I mean, you ran a successful business yourself. You were doing ceramics. You had a little TV show, but I assume you also had some resistance.
To do something, but there was no place to get a job. It was the trouble with women at that time.
Those women are always getting in the way.
And
You were a stay-at-home mom, at-home mother. They gotcha. Oh. You had 11 kids, so it does take a village, literally.
Sounds like a full-time gig.
Yeah.
But to get back to that TV show, they approached us. This
And this is we're going to try to look up and see if we can find a cover, but it was the So Lovely Sisters SCW, right?
they just came to TV where we could all watch it and have a program, have a studio in town. That was the first one ever. And they needed,
Did you even have a TV at home?
No,
You didn't even have a TV
No,
at home? Oh, you did? Okay.
we had in the first row.
Nice. So your show was in black and white in these days?
no sound. One time.
This is the Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of musicals to begin with, but we didn't go. Acting was too far away, and besides, you didn't have a nickel to go.
Do you find that the current generation is a bit spoiled? And you almost hinted at, oh. Here it comes out. Now it's coming. Give us let us know, what's going on with this generation? Now we have children who won't talk to each other. They have phones that they can order anything. They don't date anyone unless they're
like each other. I don't like the thing of it is, with big families compared to little families, we loved each other. We had to,
especially when you're pulling out each other's hair.
yeah,
That's like an exchange. Right, the hand-me-downs.
but each other, all of us. And then nowadays you don't even talk and get mad at each other.
Families are getting smaller.
Because of greed.
Greed. Tell us about what's in greed. Do you mean like some people want a career? Some people just want to have a big house. Some people,
careers.
Right.
Can't be like that because there's no such thing as a career only unless you're a farmer or something.
Right.
You didn't even hear about it.
And birth control was not around. I mean, not in those days, right?
But and Relia is the one that had the most kids, but then most of us had 4 or 5. I had 5.
You had 5 kids?
My twin sister had 6.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of
It
them had
was
3.
degree. Not the way they want it now.
Well, now it's like they can almost plan around their children, right? They can put it into a calendar. And then you definitely did not have that option, right? Oh, you would have kept going too. She had 11 and she's like, no, I can get another.
Yeah,
Well,
tell us about greed again. Tell us about greed.
Yeah, tell us about greed, Grandma. Obviously.
So you could support them.
When you had a lot of kids, we always joke about this, like you had to have kids because you had a ranch or you had a farm and you needed them as a labor source. Was that true? Or what? It was truly a cost to have kids were expensive. You just want a kid.
To make a living for themselves. And so he had to give up the ranch too because he only had girls. The last time
Ways to help work it.
we'd go to Tiggy in the summertime. It's a wonder. We loved to go up there, and that's where the ranch was. That's where we went to get hay when in the snow.
Do you think kids today would have made it growing up as one of your neighbors?
Not the way they started out. No. There's a lot different.
What are some things that you see in, or do you play with AI? Do you use any AI? What's the most common modern technology that you're playing with, or that you've just said, no, I don't want anything? It's, you want to get rid of. You want to get rid of it. Well, there's some niceties. There's got to be some niceties. Like you said, you drive a car, so you got a car, so that's nice. I'm sure it has heat, air conditioner. Then there's in plumbing. There's toilets that are in the house. You have a sink. I mean, so there's some technologies that I imagine, like, okay, these were good.
Color is a good one.
What was it?
There's color down.
Color down.
Like, that
Oh
would
yeah,
have been a
color.
massive
Yeah,
difference,
you can watch
right?
color TV. You can watch YouTube videos right on your screen. But then there's some others that are beyond there. What technology is like, okay, after this it was fine, but we don't need any more. You remember?
It's a mystery to me how that's integral what they're going to do next. People are so smart nowadays, and they're just so far beyond me. When I thought I was pretty smart when I was in high school, I got good marks, but pretty stupid now. Don't understand anything anymore, and don't even try. Don't even care.
I think we're all in the same boat. It just follows us around.
Not them going out. Not yet. Not to this degree.
This has been fun. What would be advice that you would give a young couple? Let's say, because it's strange. I was sitting in a restaurant the other day with my youngest son, who is 21, and we're sitting in, and I'm looking next to us, and there's three men who look about my age, and they're with their child, and they're all like 3 or 4. So the age of men who are having their first kid are in their early 40s. Women who are having their first kid are in their later 30s. So what would be some advice that you would say if you were to talk to someone who is 18 right now, young woman, 18, what would you tell her? Or maybe just smack her, give her some of that loving hand. Yes. Spoiled brat.
That too is just like the church teaches. You can still have babies and go to school.
Mm.
And I still think it's a good idea to have your kids when you're young, because you'll play with them and you'll do things and you get a few years older and you don't want to be bothered doing that. So the younger you are, actually, you're going to have better kids. I think you can learn how to, if you work together, you can figure out a lot of things. But
And by working together, you mean like get married or something, get a couple, marry a couple.
Teach their children how to work.
Now, how do you teach? Because I would say my own kids, it's not easy. It almost takes more work on me to have to teach them to work. And so it's like, oh, yeah, exactly. It's so hard. So
Yeah, let me do it.
Brings out all his boys how to work.
because
short from playing and don't like
Yeah.
us.
And
Do it myself, said the little girl then, and she did. But, they just,
Mm.
kids don't. I don't know if they're doing something they like to do. My kids like to play with the horses, of course, that's what they had to do, and they loved it. But then they didn't get their schooling like they should. Schooling is important.
what was education like for you? I mean, you went to, were all of your siblings in one schoolhouse, and then that was high school, and then, what was it after that? One room in 3 grades. Gotcha. So it was one room would have like first, second, and third, and then fourth, fifth, and
First,
sixth would be in another
yeah.
room. Gotcha.
6, 7.
What was family like in college? Like, was that something that was talked about? Was college something you aspired to go, or was just kind of like, I've heard of it, but never even.
It was too far away, and there's no way you could go to college unless you had somebody you could go live with. And then how you don't want to use. Of course, when you don't have many money, you use a family anyway.
Right.
You can't go. That's the sorry spot with my life. I wished anything I had still. I couldn't take him till. I took a few college classes, and I took real estate.
Oh.
Course, and I sold real estate. So I did a few things right, but then
What would you wanted to have studied? Had you been in this world where college is a little more accessible, what do you think you would have?
so I could be a nurse,
Okay, nursing, nice business.
probably a nurse.
How about you, Relia?
Yeah, I could not.
All right. Well, let's ask you about common life now. You're both two very attractive young single women.
Single
Um,
ladies.
What is life like in the last 10 years? Do you use any technology to meet anyone, or how do you find a social environment now?
Like you see these women, they're single and ready. They think, oh, I got to go here to find somebody. You're not going to find them. The thing of it is, I really believe this. That if you're supposed to have one, you'll get one. That somebody else will bring them to you.
Ah, nice. Sort of knowing they would come to you. All right. This is very similar to the technology, right? Because now technology, they have it where you just look at a picture and you swipe left, you swipe right, and that's how they put you together. If you both swiped, I don't know if it's left or right, I forget, but if you both swipe the same direction, then it's like, oh, you should meet.
You want to be careful with that first man.
Mm.
You want to be sure that it's the right one.
Yeah, but you're not. I was in love with love.
Okay.
You know, I think that all the time we were growing up,
You got married twice, right?
you don't have the mother and say, no, I love kiss, hug you, and or daddy. We never kissed you or anything, but we knew he loved us. But no, I think I was in love with love. And
It must have been hard. Your mother was gone, so you had siblings, but to really find a place where you could be in comfort, I could see as kids. I mean, now to think of what you kids went through, that would be considered like abandoned abuse in today's standards. It's unbelievable how it, but your father was working, he was trying to bring everything he can. So, all right.
that's,
Right. Yeah, it is a remarkable story.
yeah, good father, such a good example.
Now, did you get a little beating? Do you think?
Never.
Never. Huh? Did you carry that on with your kids, or did you? I know Grandma didn't. We gave a little smackaroo. So,
Isn't quite that what he meant.
and what about kids today? Do you think corporal punishment should be something that's still carried on?
If I don't like that,
Mm.
get pat on the butt, just let them know you mean it. But the kids, they just laugh. Of course, our daddy, he would tell us the worst thing he'd say is, you damn little shits.
That's what Ethan says to his daughter, actually.
I named
The
one of my
worst thing
kids.
Stormin is outside. I wanted to go to the neighbors, and he said no, and I thought I'm going to anyway. He caught me as I was going up the snowbank, and he picked me up with his foot. He just picked me up, and
Yeah,
You were that
it's
small. That is very lenient.
then sister over there. So if you didn't ball loud, well,
Gotcha. So you have some young great grandchildren. When they are sitting in these similar chairs in 100 years, what do you think they will be talking about has transpired over their life?
gosh,
I don't even want to think about that.
yeah, to
It made
imagine.
me feel bad.
They've come so fast.
There's nothing that's enticing now. Nothing that's uplifting.
Right. You mean most of it's like on a technology or an app that's not really benefiting anyone. They're just
You
finding
name it,
new ways
it's
to entertain. What do you think about these space rockets? We have lots of companies who are trying to go to space. Think that'll go anywhere? And
It might go somewhere, but what's the point?
what's the point?
You're up there all by yourself.
Go a long ways away to be alone. You can be alone right here.
Yeah.
Yes, to live a good life here, and
no fun to be around a crowd.
And teach your
By yourself.
children the same.
Do you think there will be a time when people start having a lot more children? What kind of a policy or what kind of an education or what do we need to do to help increase younger generations into having more children? Or do you think they shouldn't?
Well, they have plenty out of wedlock.
You know, they used to. It's not happening anymore. The numbers are actually going way down. Yeah. So, in fact, to those points, there is 25% of the potential babies a year are aborted. So abortions are very high. But even general babies in general, there aren't that many. In fact, there's a bigger study that teenagers, I don't know if you believe this or not, teenagers are not having sex. So teenagers in early 20s, it's very strange. I mean, it's not abstinence and they're not dating. So that's part of this household or delayed household formation. So people are waiting much longer to even date or get into relationships. Some of the data there's what's called delayed household formation. So young men are leading it with, I think it's something like almost 60%. And they stay living with their parents until they're in their 30s. And then 40% of them are women, and they stay living with their parents until they're in their 30s. What would it have been like had your older brother who started working at 17, can you imagine him staying and living at home until he's in his 30s?
Sure. And I don't know why it never happened in my life. I never saw anybody come around and sell life insurance. But it was for $1,000. I just found out this year. And I can't believe it. More like 100. But anyway, he got a life insurance out. And I know it was in the letter that I had of his, and it was in that letter. And bought this life insurance, and he thought it was for himself. But after Mother died, it was for Mother.
Oh, wow.
And here, imagine that was...
And there was some clause in it. They had to double it, and Dad got $2,000.
You're kidding. Wow.
Now, that's the Lord taking care of you, isn't it?
Wow. So here you are almost starving. Dad's working, and he finds out he's getting $2,000 to help care for everyone. What do you do with it? I mean, what?
Brand new phone.
You're glad you got the money.
Phone.
Dad disappeared for 4 months and came back with a new girlfriend. It's still somewhere in a can somewhere.
Did they have flat screen TVs back then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they definitely. Yes, if you had flat screen TVs. Yeah.
Big families, I think that overall,
You learn to give.
Mm.
yeah, you got to be givers, not just takers.
Right.
You got to share. And that's what singles don't know how to share.
It is tough. There's more and more people are one-child households. Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, I come from a very large family myself, so kind of packed in the middle. So I didn't seem to have any problems with it. I think it's quite well, but it is changing. Oh, tell us about that. Was that too many? In a family of 11, and you're the... Were you identical?
Got Valentine. But everything was to Neoma and Wyoming.
Always, always. Now, sister, you still live together today. You're still together. You grew up living together. Now, sisters, I know from growing up with sisters, they do not like to share clothes. Was that something as you were children? And do you still sneak in and take each other's clothes now? Is that still in the house?
Been here at Neoma's dress, and then I get one identical to it from Wyoming.
Because you'd have two ahead of you.
No, because those dresses so young to get one alike. So we didn't have two alike.
I know, but I rescue her.
Good joke.
This has been awesome. Really appreciate you all joining. Wrap us up, each of you, if you can give us a little word of advice that you would give the next generation of what it's like to 100 years on this planet, what you've seen, what you've done, and something to look forward to that those listening can take from this.
You're talking over my head. I can't think that good.
Already given me some great bits what you did. You know,
Lost your mind.
well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the secret. Ethan, I think we're going to do all right.
We're getting close.
The
close.
reason why is because we were born when everything was pure.
Mm.
There was
What are you?
no,
Oh, you bring up an interesting point. Now,
no poisons, no sprays.
none of these chemicals, you mean?
Nothing synthetic.
And the
Yeah,
water
synthetic.
was no, clean water when you went hiking and stuff. Everything was pure.
So you could drink from the river.
Safe.
Or at least you did drink from the river. Nice. And Relia?
This generation there ever was, because we've seen bigger changes, and we learned a lot of things. Not too many smarts, but for living to just
Right.
be in associations, and everybody seemed to care about each other. Everybody loved each other. There's never a stranger. You know,
And now we have strangers who pick you up in a car. Right. Ditto with that. Nice. Nice. Well, I hope we all, if you only have one sibling, maybe you need to find a cousin, but it is kind of a nice way that you grew up together and now you get to roommate again. How long have you lived here together?
10 years.
10 years. Wow.
No,
Yes. Right. Yeah. So some of the people here that room don't have a sister. Really?
As long as we can hear them, they don't like each other. They don't have
After they pulled hairs, they parted ways. Is that what happened?
each other's neck every second. I'm in there and she's out here.
You have your separating
I do
time.
like she doesn't. Sometimes we don't hardly even talk all day, but
Is that intentional? Yes. And I see you have an organ. Do you still play the organ? Like, no.
no.
Is that what keeps the peace?
Wanted her to keep playing, but she wouldn't play in front of me.
Oh.
So she quit playing.
I could play and I shouldn't have done it. I give my organ away if she ever goes to do it.
I think people ought to get more involved in music.
Yeah.
I think it.
You mean playing our phones louder with headphones? Is that what you mean?
Not just turn it on and off.
Right.
Be the entertainer.
Right. Did your family have a lot of music? Did you play drums? Were there a lot of
You
instruments?
know, mother played. She played by ear and
She played the organ. How did she practice
Yes,
the organ? Oh, a pump organ.
And
I didn't even think about that.
yeah, you had to sit there and pump it. But then, anyway, she was talking. She had all the kids. Because I remember as a ukulele children, after mother died, well, the older girls, I know we had a songbook about that because it's these old songs. And the girls, they must have known that because Roy even mentioned about all of them singing. You know, mother had all the older kids all singing. And so then when she died, well, the older girls had us singing, and she had Wyoming night performing and stuff. And we knew every song that there was. And the thing of it is, we could go to a show, at least four of us, at least four, but we could, if there was a particular song in there you didn't hear, well, we knew it by the time we got home, if not the other one did. And so I think music is an important
Music's the
thing.
key.
I didn't have it, and so my poor kids didn't give it.
When we were little and cold with the weather, it was so cold outside. They'd build a fire, and we'd all be awake, but it was too cold to get out of bed, way below zero, so we'd sing.
We sang a lot, and if we got little trips, we sang the whole night.
Oh, your voices were your music, so you'd sing all the time.
Voice with the instruments.
Tom.
All of you were the various instruments. You had some bass, some treble.
No, I can't even carry two.
Very nice. You heard it here, folks. Hostile Dysfunction. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned. We got another nice show coming next time. So thanks for listening.